Welcome to the Horse Racing Network with me, Izzy Phillips, and I'm joined today by horse racing broadcaster and journalist Paul Alster. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm very well, and we've had a great time of things at Aintree, and of course, there's a lot to look forward to as well going forward. But Aintree was a very special 3 days, wasn't it?
Yes, it was amazing. And we're going to take a look now at some of those kind of key, most iconic moments from this year's Aintree Grand National Festival. And we'll start where it all went wrong, shall I say, Paul? On Thursday in the Aintree Hurdle, we obviously had the second fall in a row by Constitution Hill, and Lossiemouth come through and picked up the spoils and won the race. I was particularly impressed as well by the run of Wudo, who was the eventual second for Gordon Elliott. Paul, what was your take on Constitution Hill's fall? What do you do with him now?
Well, he's just frustrating, isn't he? We know he is still, I think, still the best hurdler in training. He's just got a problem with picking his hooves up at the right time, and he was going very well. I mean, and to be honest, when you saw the end of the race, and you're quite right that Wadhu did run a terrific race, and she's very much improved, but Lossiemouth really had to work to beat her, which suggests to me that had Constitution Hill stood up, he would probably have won and won easily. But you got to be in it to win it, and he wasn't there at the end of the race. I hope he goes to Punchestown. I'm not sure if there's any latest news on that, but assuming that he's okay after the fall, it will be nice to end the season with a clean round and to put himself back on the top of the heap. But it's very frustrating. And those that take the odds and back him as favourite will have been stung twice. But the fact remains that he's not been beaten when he's stood up. So, he's still a fine, fine horse, a great horse, you might say. But he's just had these concentration issues. And I'm sure that Nicky Henderson and Nico de Bonville will iron out those issues. And those morons that have been slagging off Nico de Boinville on social media simply don't know what they're talking about, because as we know in the racing business, anything can happen, even to the very best horses.
Absolutely. I was going to say, Paul, Nico has come for some serious criticism on that ride, and I just don't think it's fair. The only thing I will say is Paul Townend did do a very impressive move on Lossiemouth to angle her out, and he did pile the pressure on, but that's just good riding, isn't it, at the end of the day? I watched ITV review the fall in itself, and Ruby Walsh has such fantastic analysis of riding, and he was showing how Nico had asked Constitution Hill to take an extra stride, and he just didn't listen. So I think the way you've described it's probably best. Those concentration issues are certainly kind of making him come a cropper, but we'll see how he goes at Punchestown. I think at the moment it's all systems go, so something for us to look forward to over the next few weeks. On Friday, there was the return of John Bon, and it was better news, Paul, for Nicky Henderson, because John Bon did what we hoped he would all do, and roared back and won that Melling chase. Like I say, I think we were both in agreement that if he hadn't made the mistake he'd made, he'd probably won the champion chase as well. But nice for him to get the job done. It looks like he'll head potentially to the Sandown Jumps finale meeting as a very, very popular meeting, and one where he does usually win there as well. So perhaps sticking with known ground seems to be the route for John Bon. Maybe he's never going to win champion chase now. Who knows?
Well, there's still time. I'm also sure it's the hottest division, that the champion chase division. And, he hasn't done a whole lot wrong. And he didn't have to be at his best, I don't think, to win at Aintree. But he did it, and he won nicely. He beat Protectorat, who of course would have found the ground plenty fast enough for him. And so, yeah, in the end, he's won the race well. I think Connections will be very happy. It'll be a confidence boost for him. And as you say, he'll go to Sandown, and I think it will be a very big surprise if he gets beaten there. So I think he's still going to remain the favourite, or certainly very close to favourite, for next year's champion chase.
I mean, if I'm being completely honest, though, with you, Paul, I think that Nicky Henderson's going to have a really interesting situation, because obviously by next year Sir Gino will be of age to go in that champion chase. So
If he comes back,
hopefully he comes back. I
uh,
really, really hope he
I
comes.
hope I hope so. And if he comes back, is he going to be the same horse? Because he has been really, really sick, and very often, even great horses, when they've been through the trauma that Sagino has been through, it's that kind of level, it's not unusual for them to return, below the form that they'd shown previously. But he's still a young horse, and I would love to see him come back. But I wouldn't want to bet on him being as good a horse when he does come back. That will be down to Nicky Henderson to see what he can do.
Absolutely. It all kicked off then, Paul, after that in the Mildmay Novices chase, where it was pretty carnage. We had Dancing City, who fell, brought down Quai de Bourbon, almost brought down Handstands, and then the race was eventually won by Paul Nicholls with Caldwell Potter, another one of those sales horses that had a big price tag attached. What a race, packed with drama. I would certainly love to have seen what Handstands could have potentially done if he hadn't have been hampered. And obviously the same for people who'd backed Dancing City and Quai de Bourbon. Did you manage to catch that one, Paul?
Oh, well, I mean, this is what jump racing's all about, isn't it? The unpredictability of it all. It can just all go wrong in a split second. And Caldwell Potter picked up the pieces. I mean, it's not that he might not have won anyway, because he won really very impressively. But it must be so frustrating for Ben Pauling, because he just didn't have his handstands able to show what he can do. I think that he's a potentially top class horse, handstands. And whether he'll be out again this season, I don't know. But maybe they'll decide to just wait and have a clear run at things for next season. But Caldwell Potter was a reflection of the return to form for Paul Nicholls, who had a very good meeting. He had his share of winners, and he's kept on in good form. So we can see him probably doing well at the Scottish National meeting, and moving on to Sandown, and he'll probably have a few runners at Punchestown as well. So he's definitely a trainer to follow at the moment, Paul Nicholls.
Yeah, nice to see our former champion trainer kind of roaring back with a few winners, and the passion that he has as well is just so
Yeah.
fantastic. Paul, I think it's time though that we take a look at the big one on Saturday, and that is the Grand National. Obviously, we had our opinions on the race. I know I wasn't right, but eventually Nick Rocket won the race for Willie Mullins, partnered by his son Patrick Mullins. And Willie Mullins actually ended up having the 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7 finishes in the race, which is just, well, I wouldn't say unheard of. It's unheard of in the Grand National, but it's not unheard of for Willie Mullins. He regularly has, multiple horses placing in many races. But it was last year's winner, I Am Maximus, Paul, that we both said that we did not think was going to come anywhere near, who was serving it up to Nick Rocket after the elbow. And I was sitting there thinking about what we'd said, thinking, God, we couldn't have got that one more wrong with I Am Maximus. He certainly loves Aintree, doesn't he? And he obviously ran another belter. But what really took me about all of it, Paul, was the emotion from Willie Mullins after his son won. I think he had most of us in tears, and it was certainly a way that many of us had never seen Mullins before. He doesn't, I mean, he's always fantastic in interviews, but I don't think we'd ever seen that sort of outpouring of emotion from him. And he likened it to, it was generally around the pride of giving his son a Grand National winner, and he likened it to being like a football coach, being able to sort of bring home the Champions League or something like that. And
Yeah,
I think it was just really wonderful scenes.
it was. And he also mentioned Ted and Ruby Walsh when, Ted was able to provide a Ruby with a Grand National winner. It was very remarkable, really. First of all, the achievement, the 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. It is something unprecedented, even for Willie Mullins, although only a few days later he had the first 5 in a graded race over in Ireland. And he's won it before. And the emotion that came out afterwards was very unexpected, really, because Willie's a very feet on the ground type of guy. He doesn't normally show too much, but it goes to show when it's your own child doing something so extraordinary and you've helped them into that position, it really takes the biscuit. And I thought it was a wonderful Grand National moment. I thought it was a very good race as well, um, for many reasons. So a lot of horses still in with a chance as they turned in. Like you, I thought to myself when I Am Maximus loomed up, I can't believe this because the horse had run like a train on its previous 2 runs this season. But as you said, coming back to Aintree, it really has sparked him into life. But the thing that really stood out for me was the change in the race itself. You know, it's a while since I've been at the National, but I attended the National from the late 80s through until the mid 2000s on a very regular basis, where the kind of horse that you needed to win a National was a horse with bags of stamina that could jump mighty fences and was a bit of a slogger. It's not like that anymore. It's a different race. And as quite a few trainers and jockeys have said, it's about pace, believe it or not. You know, horses that are good at around 3 miles that can travel on. We're seeing better and better ground very often at the national meeting. And the fact that the first 3 horses, I think, were all rated over 160, which is good enough to run in a Gold Cup, you know, is something that is unheard of. It shows that this is really um, a race for high-class horses, a handicap for high-class horses, not the kind of race where I very nearly managed to pull off a real touch back in 94, was it, with 100-to-1 shot that ran from 17 pounds out of the handicap. A real slow horse called Just So that was second to Minnie Homer that was owned by Freddie Starr back in the day. Those type of horses are not even going to get close to getting in the race anymore. I have to say, having watched it back a few times, I think Grange Clare West was an unlucky loser because that mistake at the last was a jolter. And the way he finished, I'm convinced he would have gone very close to beating Nick Rocket. But Nick Rocket put in a faultless performance, and I thought it was a superb ride as well.
It was so lovely, the pictures of Nick Rocket the morning before the race rolling around near the finishing post. It was like he marked his territory there, really, hadn't he? And I will say I do agree with you on Grange Clear West. I think a very, very unlucky time to kind of make that sort of shuddering error. Like you say, Paul, the race has changed. The race's complexion has changed completely from the lowering of the fences. You know, we spoke about this on the preview. It's a much safer race, all in all. Obviously, this year Broadway Boy was having an absolutely beautiful spin before he fell. He looked like he basically just overshot the fence massively. Obviously, we've had the news that he is okay, a bit sore, but back at the Twiston Davis stable eating lots of cakes and everything from the Cotswold cake companies that are sending them treats. But we've had the news that Celeb Dalen did not recover in the end from, it wasn't necessarily injuries, was it? It was a heat stroke that he suffered in the race. And obviously we've seen that Michal Nolan's had a ban as well. It's such a shame because obviously there's all of us sort of saying how the race has changed in order to make it safer. But now we've got something to consider like heat stroke that's caused an issue. I mean, what do you do about something like that?
Well, it's something you can't really legislate for. I mean, they put a lot of measures in place. As you saw with Nick Rocket, he was a little bit unsteady when he pulled up, and Patrick Mullins was very quick to jump off him. And like all the other horses, he was doused down with cold water on what was an unusually warm day for the time of year at Aintree. I think Michael Nolan is going to regret for the rest of his life that he didn't pull the horse up. It had clearly it had run a marvellous race until going to 2 out when it stopped very quickly, and there was no chance of it being able to get back into contention. And clearly it was exhausted, and he shouldn't have made it jump the last. I think he got overexcited, wanting to complete probably for the first time. It was very sad that the horse passed away. I read only a few minutes before coming onto this broadcast that there'd been a post-mortem on the horse, and they'd found that it was suffering from a bacterial lung infection of some kind, which might go some way to explaining why it suffered such a relapse after the race, along with the inappropriate actions of Michael Nolan. But these things will happen. It's not a sterile environment. You know, it's a high-octane sport like motor racing, like boxing, like you name it, all sorts of sports. and you can't make it 100% safe. But I've got to say, I think that Aintree and the racing authorities have done almost everything you possibly can to make the race as safe as possible. And the care and attention that was given to Celeb Dalen after he became unwell, of course, was second to none. It was just very sad that the horse didn't manage to survive to live into a happy retirement on this occasion.
Yes, very sad indeed. The winner and the second and the third and the fifth and the seventh obviously accumulated quite a lot of prize money for Willie Mullins in the process, and that has completely, Paul, changed the picture of the British Jump Trainers Championship. Going into Aintree, Dan Skelton was cruising along at 1-6 to win that champion trainer. With Willie way back, he was around 5-1 to take that Jump Trainers Championship. But after the haul of winners that he had, obviously that includes the likes of Lossiemouth as well. He was only £137,000 roughly behind Dan Skelton, and the odds have now completely flipped. Willie Mullins is now 2-5 to take the championship, and Dan Skelton out to 5-2. Obviously, they made their intentions very clear and said, we'll see you at Ayr. And if you look at the entries for the Scottish Grand National, I think at one point Willie had 11 entries and Dan had 5. They're going to go toe to toe now, aren't they, until the end of the season? But who do you think is going to take this championship home this time?
Well, I'd love to see Dan Skelton win it, but I don't think he's going to do it now because the firepower is there with Willie Mullins. Does he run 6, I think, in the Scottish National? And I think Dan's got 2. I do think his Sail Away might run much better than its odds suggest, but Willie Mullins is surely going to cop for at least some of the prize money. It's not certain that Dan Skelton will get any in the Scottish National. There are, of course, other races as well, but it's just a question of firepower, and Willie Mullins has got so many good horses still on the go, and Dan Skelton has got less to offer, even though he's got a few good chances, I'm sure, lined up as well for Sundown. I've got a feeling he's going to be nabbed and caught at the post, and like so many good long odds on shots, 1-6 shot, I think he's going to get turned over. I think Willie Mullins is going to be like the runaway train, really, almost impossible to stop.
I think as well, the thing with Willie Mullins is it's impossible not to like him. He is just so fantastic of a trainer, and so many people that work closely with him say he's such a fantastic guy. But even just the way he interacts with racing fans as well, racing fans do like him. As a Brit, my heart really wants Dan to keep it, because he'd set out this year to bring that championship back into Britain, and I'd hate to see him, like you say, fall at that final hurdle after he spent the whole season grafting away trying to get that win. A few people as well I've spoken to generally saying that they think it's really bad for racing, that Mullins almost has this kind of level of monopoly and firepower, and obviously the way he's winning now and the level of finishes in a race like the Grand National, potentially that's only going to get worse, because that's even more rise on his stable, more people that would want horses with him. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think I mentioned before that, you know, it goes in phases, doesn't it, racing? You have trainers that, you know, do monopolize. When you look at the likes of what Paul Nicholls was doing a few years ago with your Masterminded, your Big Bucks, your Corto Star, Denman, you know, like you say, if he wasn't winning it with one horse, he was winning it with the other, because they were all equally as fantastic. And you get these kind of cycles and stages, and we're currently in the Willie Mullins stage. Part of me thinks let's just enjoy it and embrace it, because he's such a great guy.
I think that's very, very true. And there's always been dominant forces in the sport of racing. If you go back to the late 70s and early 80s, it was all about the north of England. It was all about Michael Dickinson and Arthur Stevenson and Peter Easterby and Gordon Richards, even then Lungo at one point. Then, of course, it all moved south with Martin Pipe and Philip Hobbs and Paul Nicholls and so on. And then the Irish, who struggle for so long to buy winners at the Cheltenham Festival, have taken over in the last decade and a half. However long that lasts, we'll have to wait and see. But everything goes around, it's all cyclical. And I'm with you that it would be great to see Dan Skelton win. I think he's a terrific bloke, I think he's very, very good for racing. But he's up against a really irresistible force in Willie Mullins. Whether there should be limits on the number of runners a trainer can have on a race is a completely different debate, which maybe we'll have at another time. But as I say, I think Willie's going to get there. But if somehow Nick manages to hold on, it would be a really commendable achievement, an award-winning worthy achievement if he does hang on.
Absolutely. That is all we have got time for on our Aintree Grand National Festival review. Thank you so much for joining us. And thanks again if you stayed all the way till the end of the video. Stay tuned. We have got a flat to follow video coming for the upcoming flat season as well.